I came today with a gift for your baby's birth. I asked around and bought some good formula milk, so please make sure to give it to your child.
My mother-in-law, Elizabeth, said that while handing me a can of formula milk right after I had given birth. She always believed, without any basis, that I married her son Rick for his money and had constantly harassed me. It felt strange and suspicious to see her presenting a gift with a smile.
I hope they grow up healthy.
She said that, leaving without any of her usual snide remarks. Her departure felt eerie. Puzzled, I showed the formula milk to my mother who had come to visit. She turned pale and urgently said,
"Don't open it. Throw it away right now."
Then she rushed to the police station with the milk.
"Please examine this powder. I think it's not formula milk."
I was shocked and bewildered by what my mother reported to the police. "I'm Sarah, a daycare worker. I love spending time with the adorable children, even though it's always busy due to constant staff shortages. That's when I met Rick. He's a police officer. He visited the daycare where I work to teach the kids about road safety. Every year, it seems that the police collaborate with daycare centers to teach preschoolers about traffic rules before they start elementary school, and it's usually the responsibility of new officers. Rick, young and full of justice, was popular among the daycare staff, and I found him wonderful too. Our relationship started when he gave me his contact information, and I responded. We fell in love, started dating, and got married within a year. Rick, diligent at work and helpful at home, made our married life blissful. However, I faced one major problem: my relationship with Elizabeth. She seemed convinced I married Rick, a public servant, for his status, and had a low opinion of me. I realized this during my second visit to their home. We were discussing wedding plans at their place. I went to help Elizabeth in the kitchen, where she shockingly said,
Even someone as uneducated as you can have an easy life by flattering a public servant.
Excuse me, what do you mean?
Well, being a daycare worker isn't exactly a smart person's job, is it? The pay isn't great, and you must have been worried about your future. But marrying a police officer like Rick means you're set for life.
I was stunned by her words. I tried to explain that I didn't marry Rick for his money. I married him for who he is. But Elizabeth never listened.
You might deceive Rick, but you can't fool me.
She said that, leaving me frozen in shock. From then on, every time I visited their home, she would make snide remarks. Since our houses were close, sometimes we'd see each other as often as once a week. It was always painful, but I endured it because Rick had a good relationship with her. About 6 months into our marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. Rick was overjoyed, and so was I. There were other things that made me happy about being pregnant. It was the fact that I didn't have to see Elizabeth for a while. I asked my mother to help with household chores. Elizabeth's offer to help would have made me uncomfortable. Rick understood and made sure Elizabeth didn't visit. Since our houses are close, I used to be called to my in-laws' house frequently, so not having to see Elizabeth was a relief. However, the distance from my mother-in-law was only until I entered the stable phase of my pregnancy. She called me after that, inviting me to collect vegetables from the family garden. As Rick couldn't come due to work commitments, I had to go alone. When I went to my in-laws' house, my father-in-law, Jason, welcomed me warmly and filled a bag with fresh vegetables for me.
They are pesticide-free, so they should be good for you and the baby. Eat plenty of them.
He said kindly, making me feel grateful and appreciated. But as I was about to leave, something terrifying happened. Just as I stepped down the front stairs, I suddenly felt a push on my back. Desperately protecting my belly, I twisted and fell, sliding down the stairs shoulder first. It was only about 4 steps, but they were tiled, and I scraped my shoulder and elbow. Enduring the intense pain, I looked up to see Elizabeth, smirking down at me.
What a pity.
She said that nonchalantly after seeing that I hadn't hit my stomach, and then she went back inside. I had only dealt with her snide remarks before, but now I feared for my life. I discreetly confided in my mother, who was visiting. She listened intently and asked me to tell her immediately if anything else happened. After that, I made sure to visit my in-laws only when Rick was with me, and spent most of my time at home with my mom. This helped me avoid further harassment from Elizabeth. Thankfully, I gave birth to a healthy son, Kevin. Holding my little boy, all the pain and troubles seemed to vanish. After returning home, my mom helped take care of the baby, replacing Rick, who was busy with work. I was slowly getting the hang of this new parenting role. Then, unexpectedly, Elizabeth showed up one day.
I came to give a present for the baby's birth. I asked around and bought some good formula milk. Please make sure to give it to your child.
Thank you. She was constantly smiling. However, that actually made me feel uneasy, as it was a stark contrast to her usual glaring. I hope he grows up healthy, she said before leaving. As I was pondering over her uncharacteristic behavior, my mom approached, holding Kevin.
What did she want?
She brought some formula milk she heard was good from the neighbors. I replied my mom, pulling out the formula can from the plastic bag. Instantly, my mom backed away with a shocked expression.
Don't bring that near me.
What's wrong?
Sarah, you mustn't open that can.
She warned, then quickly put Kevin in his crib and snatched the bag from me.
We need to go to the police right now and tell Rick.
Why? Surprised, I followed her, carrying Kevin. We rushed to the police station where Rick worked.
Rick, this formula is dangerous. Please check it immediately.
Lisa, what's wrong?
Sarah received it. I think it's lime.
Lime? I gasped, staring into the bag. Rick's face turned serious as he took the can. He then discussed it with his supervisor and they agreed to analyze its contents. A few days later, we learned the shocking truth. The can didn't contain formula milk. It was agricultural lime used in farming. Rick and my mom looked somber back at our house.
This lime was once used for marking lines in schools, but it was discontinued after causing blindness in some cases.
Blindness, you mean?
Just opening the can could have been dangerous for both you and the baby.
I shivered, imagining the worst. If I hadn't known and had opened it, Kevin might have been in grave danger. Anger boiled inside me against Elizabeth, who had stooped to harming even Kevin. I couldn't let her actions slide any longer. I decided to expose her misdeeds and seek justice. A few days after receiving the formula milk, Jason called to inform me that the police had shown up at their house. To explain the chaos unfolding to the confused Jason, I headed to my in-laws' house with my mother, holding Kevin. Upon arrival, we saw Elizabeth being restrained by the police, struggling and yelling.
I haven't done anything. Don't make up stories. I won't go with the police. Let me go.
Sarah, they're saying something about Elizabeth harming you. They're saying they're taking her to the police station.
Jason said that, looking bewildered as he alternated his gaze between his wife's commotion and us. Jason, what the police are saying is true. We were almost killed by her.
What? What do you mean?
I haven't done anything. Don't believe what that woman says.
Elizabeth screamed. However, Jason looked at her sternly.
If the police are involved, there must be a reason. Sarah, can you tell me what happened?
I explained everything to Jason, who had regained some composure. I think she intentionally put lime in the milk. You're into gardening, right? You must have bought lime in bulk.
Indeed. I bought lime for the garden. I was planning to spread it soon, but noticed it was less than I remembered. Could she have lied that it was formula milk and given it to Sarah?
Elizabeth turned pale under Jason's sharp gaze.
No, I wouldn't do such a thing.
Then you won't mind if the police check for fingerprints on the can, right? If they find someone else's fingerprints, that person is likely the culprit.
What do you mean?
She started sweating and looked away, nervous. You better confess now. If you keep making a fuss, it might turn into obstruction of justice. I said that firmly as she glared at me.
Yes, I put the lime in. It was just a little prank.
A little prank. You gave something that can cause blindness in adults, lying it was formula milk. That's way over the line.
You should have realized immediately it wasn't formula milk. I never thought you'd actually feed it to him. If you can't tell the difference, maybe you're unfit to be a mother.
She laughed mockingly. I was furious. Enough. It's one thing to harass me. But what if something happened to Kevin? If you disliked me that much, you should have opposed the marriage from the start.
I did oppose it. A daycare worker with no education or income. Rick's just being used, but Rick insisted on marrying you. He wouldn't listen.
I had to protect Rick because he's being deceived, she shouted, spitting with rage. She had been harassing me to break up our marriage, but it wasn't working. She seemed to panic, thinking that once we had a child, we definitely wouldn't divorce. So, she thought threatening harm to Kevin might make me initiate a divorce. But that doesn't give you the right to do anything you want. This is a serious crime.
A crime? Don't be so dramatic. It was just a prank.
It's more than just a prank.
Rick's voice came from behind. He had come home after hearing about the commotion. As soon as she saw Rick, Elizabeth reached out to him desperately.
Rick, help me, please. This woman is trying to get me arrested. It's all a misunderstanding. Convince the police. You know them, right?
I'm sorry, but it wasn't Sarah who pressed charges. It was me.
Why would you do that?
I feared for the lives of Sarah and our child.
Rick said that as he looked at her sadly.
When you gave Sarah the lime, she and her mother came to the police station where I was. I've heard all about the harassment.
That was just being a bit strict.
No more lies. I've heard about the lime. If Sarah had opened it while holding Kevin, the dust could have caused serious harm.
I honestly didn't know it was that dangerous. I thought it was harmless since it's used in gardens.
Not knowing isn't an excuse. There was no harm done, but you had malicious intent. That could be attempted murder.
Attempted murder.
She gasped, covering her mouth.
You've done enough. Reflect on your actions and pay for them.
Wait, I did it for you. Please, let's pretend this never happened. We're family. Overlook this much.
She clung to Rick with tears in her eyes. But he shook his head slowly.
If I forgive you now, you won't learn. When I told you about marrying Sarah, you judged her without even meeting her and wouldn't listen.
To make her reconsider her actions, Rick quietly explained why he had to press charges. But Elizabeth didn't seem convinced, apologizing while crying and clinging to Rick's feet.
Why are you so cold? Do you know how hard I've worked to raise you? Are you really taking the side of a woman you've only known for a few years over your own mother? That's too much.
I am grateful to you, Mom. You did a lot for me, like household chores and driving me to extracurricular activities. But the way you've treated Sarah is wrong. I won't withdraw the charges.
No, please, I've reflected on my actions. I won't harass Sarah anymore. I'll do anything, even help with the housework. Just forgive me.
Elizabeth began to cry uncontrollably. Still, Rick just watched her silently, without nodding. Then, realizing her appeals to Rick were futile, she turned to her husband.
Dad, please help me. I'm not guilty. Tell the police I'm innocent.
Jason quietly shook his head.
I've been silent until now, but what you did can't be forgiven. You need to pay for your crimes.
Why are you taking her side too? If I get arrested, I can't live here anymore. Didn't we say we'd enjoy our retirement here, gardening? Are you okay with losing that dream?
The neighbors, having heard the commotion, were watching from afar. If she were taken away now, rumors would surely spread. It could even become impossible for her to live there. But Jason remained unyielding.
It's okay if I can't garden anymore. If it means Sarah and Rick won't suffer, that's fine.
Enraged, Elizabeth shouted.
You're prioritizing her over your own wife. You prefer a younger woman. You no good traitor.
Exasperated by her foul language, Jason sighed.
I never thought you were this terrible. I can't stay with you anymore. We're getting divorced. Get arrested for all I care.
Are you serious? You're joking, right? We were fine until yesterday. Why are you suddenly talking about divorce?
Jason held his head.
Suddenly, watching you harass Sarah without remorse and insult others when things don't go your way cooled my love instantly.
But everyone's on Sarah's side. No one listens to me.
We are listening, and we're saying you're wrong. What you did is bad enough for arrest. How can you not understand that?
Shocked, she fell silent at his stern tone.
I don't want to spend my life with someone who lacks common sense.
Jason said that, causing Elizabeth to tremble violently.
Wait, if you leave me, what am I supposed to do? I have no income. My pension is not much. I won't be able to live. Please, just not divorce.
She stretched out her hands, pleading as if casting a spell to stop the divorce. However, Jason coldly brushed her hands away. Her face was then a mess with tears and smeared makeup. She then turned towards me.
Sarah, I'm sorry. It was my fault. I apologize. So please forgive me. If you forgive me, then Rick and Dad will too. Please forgive me.
That's not really an apology to me, is it? You're just apologizing to get forgiveness from Rick and your husband, right?
No, that's not true. I really do feel sorry. I'll do anything if it means getting forgiveness. You know, child rearing is hard, right? I can help you with that. It will make things easier for you.
She said this with a forced smile. It made me feel nauseous. How could I trust someone who endangered Kevin's life with such dangerous harassment to help with child rearing? I sighed, exasperated at her complete lack of understanding. I'm sorry, but I can no longer trust you. Therefore, I want nothing more to do with you.
Don't say that. Aren't we family?
Family? You never thought of me as family, did you? You've always been trying to divorce me and kick me out of the house.
Well, that's...
I might have tolerated the harassment against me, but I can't forgive someone who harasses Kevin. I can't consider you family anymore, and no matter how much you apologize, I can't forgive you. Rick then signaled the police. They grabbed Elizabeth's arm to take her to the patrol car.
No, stop. Don't touch me. Please, forgive me.
As she screamed, the police led her away. She was later arrested for attempted murder. We didn't suffer any health damage, but due to the severity of her actions and her malice, she faced serious punishment. Jason divorced her, and Rick also decided to cut ties with her. Now, she is in prison, and we have moved and cut off all means of communication to ensure she cannot contact us after her release. She had a history of harassment and wasn't well regarded in the neighborhood. Her arrest spread her bad reputation, and she lost any supporters she might have had. Even after her release, she likely lived a lonely life without friends or relatives to rely on. Being a housewife, she has no income. And with her age and criminal record, finding work will be difficult. It's sad to think about her situation, but for Kevin's safety, it was necessary. Kevin is now crawling and growing well. Watching him grow, I'm relieved we cut ties with Elizabeth. I'm committed to ensuring Kevin's health and safety going forward.